There are a lot of massive college football games this weekend, and two of them are in the Big Ten. Now, tomorrow we'll look at Ohio State and Oregon, but today it is fourth-ranked Penn State's turn to shine as we look at their game against the USC Trojans. Everything you need to know is right here on Locked On Big Ten.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So it's Penn State's turn to shine as they take on the USC Trojans. We're going to be all over this. Got a big prediction for this one, and also some big news around the Big Ten. We'll get you caught up. Another quarterback decision at Michigan, plus our power rankings, all coming up right here. But everybody's making a big deal about how Ohio State and Oregon, and that game features the top three teams in the country, and everybody should make a big deal about it. We're going to make a big deal about it. We're going to talk about it on tomorrow's podcast, but it would be a mistake to overlook Penn State right now, the team that sits at number 4 in the AP top 25 rankings. And the Nittany Lions are very excited about this. They're finally getting that upper echelon of college football. They'd always been really, really, really good, but couldn't get past the Ohio States and the Michigans and whatnot. Still looking up at Ohio State on the rankings, but they're right there nationally. And they're traveling out west to take on the USC Trojans on Saturday. And this was shaping up to be a battle of top 10 teams, but USC lost up at Minnesota this past week. In fact, they were ranked 11th. They're not even in the top 25. That's how bad that loss hurt the USC Trojans right now. So we got to figure out a few things for them as well. Now, USC has one advantage in this game on Saturday, and it is the fact that they're at home. It should be worth something here. Comfort. But all things remaining equal, toughness, power, strength, those seem to beat speed and finesse so far in the Big Ten football season, and that's going to be a problem for the USC Trojans. It's going to be a huge advantage for James Franklin and his Nittany Lions football team. We all know it. Vegas knows it. The Nittany Lions are 5.5-point favorites right now in this game. Now, there are a few Trojan fans that don't realize this yet. Now, we here on this podcast, I think, have gone out of our way to welcome the 4 Pac-12 teams into the Big Ten. We were always looking forward to them coming. We're excited about the storylines. We're always looking for good storylines to do on the 4 new schools. We love it. We're a great opportunity. We always try to shed some positive light on them. We think the addition of those 4 teams makes a great Big Ten even more awesome. Very excited about it. But there are a handful of Trojan fans, and I'll hear from them in the comments after this podcast. If they watch podcast, and if I say anything constructive or anything negative about the USC Trojans, the defense mechanism goes through the roof. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it before. Get some really ugly comments out there from a few people who still think the Pac-12 and Big Ten, it's still a rivalry. It's still a thing. It's not. So my favorite are those, and I got a lot of these, that are suggesting that Big Ten officiating is rigged against the 4 new Pac-12 teams that are in the Big Ten now. That's the moment if you fans forget that there's schools in the Big Ten now, and these are Big Ten officials, and both teams are from the Big Ten, and nobody's getting any favors, one side or the other. It's ridiculous. I've spent too much time on this already. Let's move on. The hate mail will continue, I'm sure. Regardless of who you're rooting for on Saturday, Penn State and USC have some tremendous athletes to watch. So let's throw them at you. Let's talk about them. These are all guys we've talked about a lot here on this podcast on a regular basis. Let's start with Penn State. Drew Aller. Drew Aller doesn't make mistakes. He's not going to turn the ball over. He's completing 71% of his passes. He's thrown for over 1,100 yards so far this year. 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. He threw 2 interceptions all last year. If you're new to Penn State, if you're one of the new West Coast fans, this guy does not make mistakes. In fact, I would like him to be a little more aggressive. And this year he has been more so than last year. They're really, with Nick Kotelnicki, the new offensive coordinator, they were really spraying the ball around to different people, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. But as far as the running backs go, they got a solid 1-2 punch. Everybody looks at teams like Ohio State, some other teams that have great 1-2 punch running back. Few are better than what Penn State has. I'll tell you that. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, both been there year after year together. Singleton's run for 408 yards, 7.7 yards per carry so far this year, 3 touchdowns. He missed the UCLA game, and we were surprised by that. We were. Even James Franklin thought he was going to play. He was a late scratch from that game. He had been banged up in the Illinois game, sat out 1 day of practice, was limited for the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday. Everybody thought he was going to play, and then he didn't. But when you don't have a Nick Singleton, and by the way, he was great in the Illinois game a couple of weeks ago. Just a powerful, powerful running back. Katron Allen, you got him. You lean on him when Singleton's out. Allen's rushed for 367 yards, 5 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. So your 2 running backs, you got one guy that averages almost 8 yards a carry. The other one averages 5. That's tough to beat. They also have a tight end that you need to watch in Tyler Warren. This is Andy Kotelnicki's secret weapon. So he's thrown a touchdown pass. He's received a touchdown. He's run for a touchdown. He's all over the place. He's 23 catches already for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. And again, he can score in any number of ways. He'll even be under center every once in a while. They really do everything. And he's huge. So he's just a great, tremendous athlete. As far as the receivers go, guys to look for, and this was the big problem with Penn State last year. They didn't have any guys that go out and stretch the field and make big catches. They've had a few big plays this year as well. I know they like more, but they're out there. Harrison Wallace III, 14 catches, a couple touchdowns, 230 yards. Amari Evans, 10 catches, 220 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Julian Fleming, he transferred in from Ohio State. People thought he might come in and be the number 1 receiver. He really hasn't gotten on track yet. So watch out for him. He's only had 7 catches for 99 yards. Still looking for his first touchdown. I know he wants to be a bigger part of the offense. If Penn State does have a weakness, it might be with their kicking game, with their field goals. They've missed a lot this year from range 40 to 49. A little iffy. I think they've got that worked out. They made some changes, so we'll see. But all that is all offense. Now, last year, you remember Penn State was one of the top 3 elite defensive teams. In fact, the 3 best teams in the country were the 3 best teams in the Big Ten last year. It was Michigan, it was Ohio State, it was Penn State. Starting out this year, I didn't think Penn State's defense looked anything like the elite defense last year, particularly against Bowling Green and letting receivers run all over the secondary. But they're getting it dialed in. They're getting it. We saw it kind of flip the switch for the Illinois game. And then against UCLA, the later it gets, the more stingy this defense gets. They put their foot on your throat and they end it. They got they tackle well. I mean, Tom Allen has really done a nice job here. They got a lot of guys. I think they got like 13 sacks, 4 interceptions, probably like a couple more of those, 3 fumble recovers. I know they like a few more of those, but they're getting better and stronger and powerful, and they're knocking people around defensively. They're very good at tackling. Jalen Reed, their leading tackler, strong safety. Tony Rojas, linebacker. Zakee Wheatley, Kobe King. I can go on and on. All these guys are forces on this defense that Tom Allen has worked with. Now, the USC Trojans. Let's talk about them for a minute. Miller Moss. Remember him. We got a lot of hype coming into the season, coming off that Holiday Bowl. 1,400 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a little high, but the offensive line has been a little bit suspect for USC. And look, Moss has been sacked 8 times this year, but he's been pressured many, many, many more times. Seen him throw a pass and end up on his back a lot. And then they need a little help from Woody Marks, who seems like a pretty good running back to me when the offensive line helps him out a little bit. He's good on his own. He averages almost 8 yards per carry, or 6 yards per carry, 5.8 actually. He's had 4 touchdowns as well. So he's a very good running back that can really help out Miller Moss in this offense. They had an injury with one of their key players, Lake McCree, their tight end. He was their leading receiver at the time in the Michigan game. Got injured, Saw it. I thought, ooh, that might be it. But good news. He practiced this week. Might be coming back soon. So that's great news for the USC Trojans. They have a plethora of wide receivers to choose from Jacoby Lane, Zachariah Branch, Kyron Hudson, Deuce Robinson, different people stepping up each week. They're all great. That's what Tom Allen and his defense at Penn State, they're going to have to watch that secondary. Going to have to lock in on all these receivers. Defense is still, I think, a question for the USC Trojans. Danton Lynn came over from UCLA. Everybody talks about the defensive coordinator. What a great job he's done. And there have been some improvements, but as the season goes on, I'm starting to wonder, is it that much better? Linebacker Mason Cobb has 2 of the 3 Trojans interceptions so far this year. Team only has 6 sacks this year. They're going to need to put some pressure on Drew Aller and try and force him to make some mistakes because he will not make mistakes by himself. So that's the assessment of all these players. I think this is Penn State's game to win on Saturday. I really do. We'll see. USC has struggled so far against Michigan and Minnesota. They fell behind by double digits against Wisconsin at the Coliseum a couple weeks ago. I think if Penn State goes in there and takes care of their business, I think they come out with a win. I know Trojan fans going to hate on me on the comments. Fine. Bring it on. Penn State fans, we are, right? That's what you say. So it's we are versus fight on. 2 great hashtag slogans between you guys. Go at it. Back and forth on the comments on YouTube. We welcome all that. Also, I want to give you a programming note. After the Ohio State-Oregon game, which, again, we're going to preview in tomorrow's podcast, we're going to go live after the game. That's a 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, NBC Big Ten Saturday night game. As soon as it's over, we're going to go live here on the Lockdown Big Ten YouTube channel. And it'll be around 11 o'clock Eastern, 8-ish Pacific. And we always have tremendous success with that. Your comments live, my immediate reaction to that game and all the games earlier in the day in the Big Ten. It's a lot of fun. So join us for that on Saturday. Put it in your phone, mark your calendar. That will be doing that. Also, I want to invite you to check out our website, Talk Big Ten. If you're watching on video, you see the crawl on the bottom, talkbig10.com. For all of our podcasts, we file them all there. You can go back and catch ones you've missed. This will be grouped under Penn State and USC, and we put them chronologically and by school. And you can also get your merchandise from your favorite school. We have a link there for your convenience right there. We'll get some school spirit with some shirts and hats. It's all right there at talkbig10.com. And we'll also ask you to subscribe to this podcast right now if you haven't yet. It helps us out a lot, and it is free forever. And then you know when our podcasts are coming out every single day right there for your convenience. So subscribe, follow, and share, and like Lockdown Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right, some things I want to talk about. I want to get into the latest news. Got some more quarterback news at Michigan, and we're going to talk a little Wisconsin football as well. Oh, huge ratings for that Oregon-Michigan State game last Friday night. Surprisingly high, even all that we like about Oregon and Michigan State. So we'll talk about all that, and we'll have our midweek Big Ten football power rankings. We'll see your favorite team is ranked. That's all coming up here in 1 minute on Lockdown Big Ten. Watching games is fun. Talking about games, it's fun as well. Have a little action on the games, that's fun too. That's where FanDuel comes in. NFL fans, get into the rest of this NFL season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you're flipping through your phone and you want to look at it, check out some stats, some live play-by-play. It's all right there on the same page where you place your bets. Very easy. Very easy for you to be involved in every detail of your selection. So get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's at FanDuel.com. Thursday night football, 49ers at the Seahawks. 49ers, they lost to the Cardinals. Seahawks, both teams scored in the 20s and lost games this week. Unusual. Vegas is begging to take the under, 47.5. Go over. It's going to be a higher scoring game, 47.5. Even the Seahawks come off the loss to the Giants. Who knew? All that coming up. So check it out. You can do it at FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Well, thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com. Yesterday's podcast featured a deep look into Michigan coach Sharon Moore's handling of the Wolverines quarterback situation. It hasn't been great. Let's be honest. We were a bit harsh. You can go see it for yourself yesterday. If you missed it, go check it out at talkbig10.com or on YouTube from yesterday's podcast. But in the end, we really strongly suggested that Moore stick with Jack Tuttle as the starter. Not that we had anything to do with it. Moore announced to the media this week that Tuttle will likely be the starter when the team comes off its bye against Illinois when they meet next week, the 100th meeting between those two schools. And I mean, when Michigan fell down 14-0 against Washington, Alex Orji was benched. Tuttle came in, 3 straight scoring drives, got him the lead. It wasn't pretty, but somehow that offense was clicking. And that's the move they need to make and stick with him riding it out the rest of the way, I think. Michigan football coach Sharon Moore also said he spoke with former coach Jim Harbaugh recently. They talk. He said he gave Moore some advice following a 4-2 start thus far this season, which seems a far way off from the pace of the 15-0 season last year for sure. Harbaugh used a line that he's used before. He said, look, don't get bitter, get better. It's a typical Harbaugh line. Don't get bitter, get better. All right. So Michigan will use this week to try and figure out their passing woes before their game against Illinois. It will be a battle of 2 top 25 teams. They're barely hanging on inside the top 25. The loser will probably fall out of the top 25. CBS just announced that they will carry that game in their 3:30 Eastern slot. Again, that's not this Saturday. That's next Saturday. And speaking of TV, last Friday night's Michigan State-Oregon game on Fox drew a pretty decent number, despite the fact it was a very late kickoff, 9 o'clock Eastern. And the game was not that competitive. Oregon pretty much had it in hand against Michigan State. 2.84 million viewers tuned in, making it the 9th most watched college football game of the year. Look, Oregon's a pretty big draw whenever they play. And boy, I imagine that game against Ohio State is going to be humongous. Going to be huge coming up here on Saturday. Again, we're going to be podcasting live here at our Locked On Big Ten YouTube channel as soon as that game is over with on Saturday. Other news, UCLA, the quarterback Ethan Garbers, who missed the Penn State game due to an injury the week before, started practicing this week. Reportedly seemed a little hindered by it. Still had that right foot heavily taped. Didn't look that great. The Bruins, of course, host red-hot Minnesota, who just beat USC this past weekend. I actually thought Justin Martin played pretty good. The eyeball test, I thought I saw some there for him coming in for Garbers and playing, starting in his place in that game last week. So maybe a bright future for him. And I want to talk about Luke Fickell for a moment. He spoke to the media, the head coach of Wisconsin, about running back Ches Malusi's departure from the team. He's getting away from football just to get healthy. He's coming back from a broken arm and a severe knee injury last year. It's been too much. He just wants to get away from football and heal. We didn't find out about it till Thursday of last week. Nobody, I mean, not we, everybody. That's when it was announced. And so he didn't play this weekend, and he's gone for the time being. Fickell seemed pretty sympathetic about Malusi's situation. He said he was involved with the player up to decision time, spoke with him about 1 to 2 hours over the matter. So that's the latest on him. All right, coming up, we will have our power rankings that we do each and every week. Basically, they're the Big Ten standings as we see them, not as the actual standings are. That's all coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Game time will get you to the games. You want to buy a ticket to a Big Ten football game? You know, basketball season is right around the corner. Major League playoffs, NFL football. And in addition to sports, Game Time can hook you up with concert tickets, comedy shows, whatever you have going around in your local neighborhood. If it requires a ticket, you can get it on Game Time right there on your phone. Download the Game Time app. You'll be good to go for everything you need. They got their lowest price guaranteed. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. The Game Time ticket advantage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account on the app, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, it's time now for our midweek Big Ten football power rankings as I see them. We'll put it on screen. If you're audio only, we'll describe it in detail. It's a nice, pretty picture of graphics with the teams, and we will go full screen with that. And let's see here. All right. We're going to start it off. Ohio State squarely in the number one spot. We'll see. And if they get by Saturday against Oregon, look out. They're not going to budge. Penn State got them still at number 2. This is a little different than the rankings, right? Because in the rankings, Ohio State's second in the country. Oregon's 3, Penn State's 4. I like Penn State right now at number 2. I love how their defense is coming along. I got Oregon right there at 2.5. All right. If they beat the Buckeyes, they're going to shoot way up to the top. It's going to be a huge game. We can't wait for that. Got the Indiana Hoosiers sitting at number 4 in the Big Ten power rankings. They got a 52% chance of making the 12-team playoff right now, according to some analytics. 6-0, got a bye week, getting ready for Nebraska. Can't wait for that game. Got the Washington Huskies after their big win over Michigan, moving up into the number 5 spot. Like them there. The Illinois Fighting Illini ranked in the top 25. Got them at number 6. Again, they have their big game against Michigan next weekend. So that'll those two will jostle in these power rankings depending on how they do against each other. Meanwhile, let's see what else we have here. After Michigan at number 7, got Nebraska at number 8 and Iowa at number 9. Nebraska and Iowa, super tough teams. And I got them right there about the same. And I gave Minnesota a shout out. I jumped them up. They were one of our biggest movers this week after beating the USC Trojans, the 11th ranked Trojans. That was great. It was a great ending. Ball's on the 1-inch line. PJ Fleck, 4th and goal, do or die game. Game was tied. No field goal. We're this close. We're going to get it in, punch it in. But then it didn't get in. And then they needed instant replay. And replay said they got in. And it was a 7-point win. That was a huge win for PJ Fleck in Minnesota. Very, very good. All right, let's look at the best of the rest. There's our top 10 as we see it in the Big Ten. Speaking of the USC Trojans, got them at a number 11. Rutgers coming in at number 12. Still think Rutgers is having a good season. Tough 1-touchdown loss to Nebraska last week. Maryland coming in. The Terps at number 13. And Wisconsin. Oh, did Wisconsin put the beat down on Purdue this week. They got at number 14. Michigan State trying to come back from that loss against Oregon. Still sitting here kind of mired at 15. Northwestern trying to figure it out at number 16. They lost to Indiana, but everybody has so far. And I got UCLA and Purdue at the bottom. These teams they got problems. That's why they're at the bottom. And I think Purdue is falling even further and further behind UCLA. Like I see some positive things out of UCLA. Purdue, off the tracks. There you have it. Our power rankings for the middle of this week. What do you think? Did I get the order wrong? Let me know. Let me know what you think about your team, where your team should be based on where I put everybody. I'd love to hear your opinion. Hit me up with the comments on YouTube. Remember, started talking about the Penn State USC game. I'd love to have USC and Penn State fans battling with the We Are and the Fight on the comments on YouTube. Bring it. Absolutely bring it. You can also hit us up on Twitter at Talk Big Ten and our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10, talkbig10.com. So tomorrow we will do a deep dive into that Ohio State-Oregon game, the big one over the weekend. Biggest game in the Big Ten season this year. Leg up on a Big Ten championship, leg up on a run for a national championship. That's on tomorrow's podcast. In addition to interacting with us, be sure to subscribe for free, always for free. Just hit the subscribe button and then share. Also, that's the second thing. Subscribe and share with a friend. And follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Check out a previous podcast of ours that maybe you missed right there at our website, talkbig10.com. And then perhaps a second listen with our friends at Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin. Cover all things coast to coast college football right there, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it. Thanks for joining us here today. Can't wait till we meet again tomorrow for Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll see you next time.